So the broadcast is live. So we've got lovely friends at the Virtual Village Hall who are kind of just facilitating all the technology for me right now. So I really am just here to MC. So hopefully people will start coming in. I don't know whether you're able to join now. If you refresh the page. Got my nice colleague Louise here with me as well.
Oh, we're so respectable today.
I'm now hearing a playback of myself. I don't know whether that's coming through. I have earphones in. I don't know whether that's coming through Ben's computer. I don't know. Anyway, good morning, everyone. Everyone's starting to flood into the chat now, which is really nice. I'm just waiting to see if my voice stops doing something weird. Yeah, Andy, technology. I don't know what to say. Can I ask, are you hearing a double playback? Yeah, I don't know. I'm hearing a double playback of myself in my earphones. So I'm not really sure what to do about that. Right, so let's have a look. Who have we got here this morning? Andy, Victoria, good morning. I think we had someone joining from Australia as well. Jen from Melbourne. So good evening, I suppose. Catherine, Claire, hello, good morning. Okay. So it's really nice that everyone's kind of introducing themselves in the chat. Ben, is your sound okay on your end?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, lovely. It's just me. I can deal with this. That's fine. Christine, good morning. Hello. So I'm here today with Ben Aaronovitch from I'm from Listening Books, and Ben, most people will know Ben. So Ben is the author, the best-selling author of the Rivers of London, and he's the winner of our Listening Choice Award from 2022. Ben, good morning. People are asking you to introduce yourself.
Sorry, I didn't ask that last bit. You want me to interview myself? Hello, Ben.
Introduce yourself. Hi to everyone.
I was about to interview myself. I was going to ask myself some searching questions. My name is Ben Aaronovitch. I write books. It's pretty much all there is to me. I live a very dull life in which I sit at home writing books as much as possible until people drag me out to do other things. I occasionally go to the cinema, and I've been known to travel the country forlornly looking for excuses to drink coffee, mostly. That's it. I'm very happy to get the Listening Award because it's like a proper award awarded by people who actually read the books, which is always nice. And I've already put it in next to my only other award, so it's quite good because I don't get awards very often, so I was very pleased to get it. And now I'm rambling, so somebody asked me a question before I go off on a weird tangent.
I think I need to talk about a bit. I've still got my own voice coming back in my ear, and it's quite hard to hear. So if somebody else can please kick off the questions so that I can have a little think about what's going on here, I'd be really appreciative because I want to be able to properly hear what's going on. So please do someone kick things off. Otherwise, I will have to try and. I feel like a translator when they have one thing coming in the ear.
And you take one earphone out, it might be easier.
Yes, I have. We have Andy saying, when are we going to get another book?
When are we going to get another book? Well, the paperback's coming out of Amongst Our Weapons is coming out in February on the 23rd. And there's a novella that's coming out in the summer. Hold on, if you give me 2 seconds, I'll look up when it's coming out. I don't know, people asking me these difficult questions all the time. It's terrible. I can give you the exact publication date as soon as I pull up my diary. Yeah, there's a new novella, if you're German, that's coming out in German on the 20th of April. And if you're not German, it's coming out in English on the 8th of June. That's the new novella, which is called Winter's Gifts. That's when the next book is coming. You asked, I have answered. And then, sooner or later, another book will come along as soon as I've written it. No, I can't hear you. You've gone quiet now.
Gosh, I'm so sorry. I really don't know what's going on my end. Everything was fine, and then we went live. But yes, I'm really excited for all the other books that we're going to have. So we've been listening to Amongst Our Weapons because that was the winner of our Members' Choice Award, and it's so wonderful that even though I think that's the 9th book in the series, it's still so popular. How does it feel to kind of to be awarded something for the 9th book in a series? That must be insane.
Well, you in some ways you think, well, of course it's the 9th book because it's taken this long for anyone to notice I was writing books, which is like, the part of your brain goes. It's lovely to be awarded an award. I mean, it's just nice to get awards at the best of times, but it's very nice to get an award from people who concentrate on books and read a lot of books, because you can get awards from panels of judges who've had to read your book because like several thousand have been thrust at them. But it's nice to get people who actually kind of forked out some money, sat down, listened to the book. And I think it's almost as much a prize for Kobna Holdbrook-Smith, who is the reader, who is very, very good and getting worryingly famous and expensive now. I kind of like live in fear that he'll desert me for kind of like Hollywood or somewhere like that. And so I try and keep him as sweet as possible.
Yeah, no, he's a pretty big deal at the moment, and he narrates so beautifully as well. It's wonderful. We have another question from Gillian. Ben, can I ask why Peter didn't tell Martin that he had killed his own daughter? Oh, I think it's a bit of a spoiler. What was your thinking on that?
Are we talking about The Faceless Man too? If I don't know. I can't remember. It's like a very long. That's like 3 books. I don't remember that far back. You just don't. I mean, for a start, police officers very rarely give information away that they don't have to give. It's part of their training. Is that the whole idea is that information goes, unless you're a family liaison officer or something, the whole idea is that the information comes from other people to you, which you go away and then use for your nefarious purposes. So Peter will always be reticent about giving details of a case to anybody. But I can't remember exactly why he didn't tell Martin. I could go back and have a look. Okay, fine, I will go back and have a look. But he probably had a very damn good reason, I'm sure of it.
I'm sure. I mean, do you find that a lot when people ask you questions about, books past? As we said, this is the, Amongst Our Weapons, it's the 9th book. Do you not find that that's kind of, there's so much lore that goes into the universe you've created? It must be hard.
I remember better than others. So, like, that's a detail I just don't remember. I don't even remember the circumstances. Whereas I can tell you, like, super, advanced detail of things like what happened in certain clubs and what the names of those clubs were. And some characters who have like 3 lines are imprinted on my brain. And some that have quite substantial parts in a particular book, I can't remember at all. People go, "Oh, I love that character you wrote." I go, "Did I?" Or they just point a line at me, and I'm like, "Well, that's a good line." They go, "Yeah, you wrote it." And I go, "Oh, did I? Okay, I was obviously on form when I wrote that line."
Sort of channeling something, so the writer's muse that sort of kind of fills you with kind of lots of ideas, but then leaves you afterwards. And
I estimate I've written about 1 million words now, and so therefore I'm bound to forget some of them. After words.
I think you're only human, as wonderful as the books are.
Yes,
we also have another question from Claire, who says, "Hi Ben, what made you decide to make Leslie a baddie?" Oh, as someone who's only listened to the first book myself, I'm finding out a lot about the series right now.
Walking spoiler bane. I apologise to anyone who hasn't got to book 4 yet. Actually, that was even worse spoiler because up until then it was quite ambiguous. I just got to the bit where I realised I'm not going to keep it quite vague. I realised what had happened in book 1, and all of a sudden I could see the whole arc of her character arc going forward through all the books. She's the only character I actually have had an arc for. And I went, oh, shit. And then I thought, oh, great, because I knew I was going to get to a book where I was, if I handled it correctly, I could have one of those moments where you yank yank the carpet out underneath your audience and they all go, "Oh my God," run around, and you don't get to do that very often. I've read a lot of books where they've tried to do that and it's gone horribly wrong. So getting it so that it actually works, so that people go, "Oh my God," it's like a proper twist. That happens so rarely that it's very, very enjoyable when you can pull it off. And so I was very pleased with that. And then, she just kind of fell into the role. I mean, yeah, she's a baddie. I mean, I'm not going to say she's like squeaky clean, but I think of her. I don't think of my characters. I mean, a few of my characters are, out and out rotters, but I think of my characters more as having their own motivations and having their own reasons for doing things. And Leslie has her own reasons for doing things and her own motivations that she thinks are quite reasonable, that obviously Peter doesn't.
Yeah, sorry, I think my internet just glitched a little bit there, but it's good. I think that is I don't know whether it's difficult as a writer not to fall into kind of really unnuanced character writing. Is it hard to kind of maintain them sort of like grey and a bit, ambiguous, as opposed to these are the goodies and these are the baddies? Or do you think that actually it's easier to write more three-dimensional characters? No.
All of my characters think that they are the goodies. Every single bloody one of them.
I see.
So, and what I quite like about it is even amongst the goodies who are kind of conventionally the goodies, they all like think they're goodies in a completely different way from the other characters. So Seawell thinks he's a completely different goodie from the way Peter thinks he's a goodie, and Nightingale, who's got very old-fashioned attitudes, like thinks it's perfectly okay to do certain things that Peter's like, "No, God, no, you can't do Jesus," and things like that. I like three-dimensional characters. I'm a softie, so as soon as like someone comes on and twirls a moustache, I go, "Yes, but why are they twirling their moustache? What is it about their moustache that they find so twirly?" I can't help it. I always want to give them like a sad backstory or just some kind of explanation as to their attitude. I've managed a couple of times just to have just horrible people, which is possible. But even then, they keep going, "Yes, but I've got a point of view too." And you go, "Oh, what's up?"
Well, it's interesting that we're kind of talking about your characters, because we have another question from Catherine, who asks, are any of them based on real people that you know or that you've met? And if so, who? Or do they all come from here?
I'm very careful to make them as at least file off the serial numbers as much as possible. Because people don't like it. People don't like it if you put them in a book without asking their permission or paying them money. And I'm not willing to do either. I'm too shy to ask their permission, and I'm too tight to give them any money. So no, I mean, obviously, when you write, you're drawing on your experience. So there's my experience of people generally filters into the characters. I've got to say, all the rivers are not based on people I know, but they're reflections of characters that I have met, if you put it that way. Sometimes exaggerated, sometimes mixed with other characteristics. Especially when I was younger. I mean, there's a lot of people's mothers in like the various older sister rivers, particularly, who I remember going around for tea at their house, and they, and things like that. But I try and keep them as made up as possible, because there's no real percentage. There's no real percentage in kind of using real people, unless you're doing a historical thing where real people are involved, and in which case that's a completely different kind of prospect.
Yeah, I think for fiction though, like you say, I suppose you've got to be really quite bold to say, "Hello, can I base a character off you?" In real life?
I don't know anyone who actually does it, right? So I've never actually met anyone who's ever really done that. So I think I'm not the only person who just goes no. But you can't help it. You are influenced by the people you know, and so therefore the people you know will reflect in your writing. Just at the kind of very human level, at the little foibles, like how they eat, what the speech patterns, how they open doors, all that kind of stuff tends to kind of feed into your work, and you are to a certain extent a slave to that kind of like, there's just no getting away from it. You only know a certain number of people, and so therefore that's your experience of humanity, and that's the bedrock upon which you then build your fictional characters.
I think, yeah, that's a really solid basis for character development, I think. I also am going to combine two questions, be a bit cheeky, because I think they're a bit related. So we have a question from Bev, who says, how long does it take to write a new book? But we also have Francis asking, saying, I'm reading this series slowly by savouring each of them. That's lovely, Francis. And they've said, is that a plot planning board behind you? So kind of tying those two in, is that a planning board, and how long does it take to kind of the stages?
That actually, what you see behind me is, I'm just realised what you can see is actually the list of things I'm supposed to do each day.
I see. Oh my gosh, that's extensive.
Right, and also like what I'm supposed to do next week, and then what you can't see at the moment because I deliberately took it down before I did this is you'll see that like within reach of where my hand is, I will write character names so that I can just turn around and see what the characters are called, because especially the minor characters, you're always forgetting their names. And little notes like remember the dog is alive or something there that you don't forget. But I used to do a lot more kind of detailed whiteboarding. I used to do a lot more detailed whiteboarding, but I just found that it didn't really help.
You've got to do what's right for you.
It depends on the book. Some books I have, like some books, especially the ones that are much more like a straight murder mystery, I tend to end up with something that looks like a murder board in a TV series, because I have
all the string and the pins.
I have arrows coming off like the forensic reports and things like that. On this book, it's much less like that. There's a lot of police procedure, but it's much more of a kind of operational kind of moving about stuff. It's much more kind of action orientated in places, and so therefore there isn't that much of it. But if I do another one, then yes, the whiteboard will start filling up with all sorts of weird stuff and stuff. That's kind of like my progress. That one there is the progress through the various chapters and where I am on the chapters and stuff. So that's how I know where I am, because you end up with lots of little bits of files. You don't want to go on an earlier file if you've got a later file because you haven't made any changes, and then everyone goes, well, this makes no sense, characters change names.
Yeah, and then we cycle back to kind of the issue of people chatting to you about your books and kind of saying, oh, you remember when you did this, and then it tied into that, and you're like, that was 5 books ago.
I am actually in the process of generating a database, which I should have done really 5 books ago and didn't, of generating a database of every single character that's ever mentioned, because I have a tendency to repeat names. Very bad tendency. I have a tendency to repeat colors and names, and I'm trying to avoid constantly repeating myself. So I'm actually generating, and also all the spell names. You see, before it was like there were like 3 spells, and now there's like an entire cornucopia of magic and Greek and Latin terms that I can't remember. So I'm writing, all the books of the authorities, all these books that are written by various wizards from the past and everything. I have gay fun, yay, writing those down when I'm kind of doing it, and then 3 years later you'll go, I know I had a book had a title about this and I can't remember it. So I'm actually creating a data, but I really should have done it about 5 books ago and then kept it up to date. So it's kind of like, it's enormous. It's sodding enormous. And that's because of that came about because of the role-playing game. See, the role-playing game came along and it was like, when does this happen? I went, so I had to kind of go and look. Otherwise, they knew more about my own world than I did, and that was terrible. Can't have that.
I mean, it sounds like so much work from yourself, but the payoff is that you created such a rich universe with so much lore.
No, research is not work. Sitting at the table making up stuff is not work. Coming up with, mindlessly doing databases while listening to audiobooks is not work, right? Work, the writing is work. The actual going, oh God, sentence, that's work. That's the bit I find time consuming and hard, and like, oh, I've got to do that. I've got to get that done. Everything else is procrastination, really. Sometimes sometimes it's useful procrastination.
Yeah, well, I think that's I think a lot of writers find that you have to sort of procrastination, you sort of make it productive somehow.
Well, yes, I mean every so often you have to stop and work out what happens next, and you really resent that because you're not adding to the word count. You're just going, and then that happens, and that happens, and that happens. But you have to do that because you just grind to a halt because you have no idea what happens next. I mean, some writers plot their books out right from the start. They know what happens in the middle, the beginning, the middle, and the end. I'm in between. I don't start with no idea of where I'm going, but frequently I'm going along and my characters refuse to follow the plot that I thought we were supposed to be following because they complain that they wouldn't act like that. And you go, but you go, they go, no. And so you have to
we have a question from
the
Laurie.
second part of that question, which you combined.
Yes. So how long does it take? I suppose. Yeah.
That's how long is a piece of string. The fastest I've written a novel is a full-length novel, not a novella. The fastest I've written a novel was actually I've got a spreadsheet. Hold on, let me have a look. Spreadsheet.
It's lovely to see everyone in the chat saying hi and how much they love your books as well. While you're looking for that, it's so lovely to see all these people that have showed up today. To just say, Alison saying, I have to confess I was late to the party and then gobbled up all the novels on Kindle last year. My husband and I loved them. Alexandra says that Peter has Kobna's voice in my head. He's a fantastic narrator. Really, such lovely kind of compliments. So many people that really enjoy these books.
So the quickest I've done is about 180 days for a full-length novel.
That's impressive.
That's the quickest. That was the first one. None of the ones ever. And the longest I've done it was literally a year and a half of me banging my head on the table quite frequently. I'm trying to get the frequency down a bit because my publishers kind of tap the table like that. But I never know when I start a book whether it's going to be a fast one or a slow one. I wrote the last novella I wrote, which I have no idea when it's coming out because I kind of suddenly wrote it and it's so quick that I couldn't believe how fast it was. And my publisher went, "You've handed in a novella early. We don't know what to do with that. We've never had you hand in anything this early before." Or on time, and or even any kind of early, in fact. So I was hoping that was a sign that I was going to speed up, but no, apparently not. So I'm back to slagging. I'm hoping 6 months for the one I'm writing now. Nice.
That would be nice because then we'd get another book coming out soon.
Well, I'd like to produce a book every year. I really would. I really would. Honest, guys, I would like to produce a book every year. Just doesn't always seem to happen. Sometimes a bit more than a year.
Well, you mentioned that you, I know I'm very biased, so I'm going to kind of tune into this, but you mentioned that you listen to audiobooks while you work. And we have a question from Laurie who says, what books do you kind of use to escape, I suppose? Is that something that is an audiobook kind of thing for you? Or do you
basically have 3 types of audiobook. I have very, very long history books, which I listen to while on bus journeys and stuff, which I've read for research, like Bill Bryson's history of I think the one that was all about house, when he went through a house and looked at all the things and all the history of it. That was very useful for a particular book. I came up with a load of stuff while listening to that on very long bus journeys while I was doing research. And then there's books I listen to go to sleep, and they tend to be my comfort books. So I tend to go, I think I just listen to Pratchett while I'm going to sleep because I know the books off by heart, so I can just if I go or Pratchett or Bujold or John Moore or something like that, something light and fluffy or not that I know very well and is funny and I can just drift off to. And then when I'm listening to things like on long journeys and I want to listen to something that's not going to distract me from my work. See, the trouble is if I listen to a really good space opera, I want to write a space opera and I'm not supposed to write a space opera. Or I listen to a really good fantasy. So I have to be careful of what I'm listening to while I'm writing, otherwise I get distracted. So at the moment, I'm listening to cozy crime. I find cozy crime is very useful but I like very cozy crime. I don't like the kind of this new hard-edged cozy crime. I feel that's. But also I've read a lot of the classics. A lot of detective classics, a lot of science fiction classics. I just tend to read. I'm very bad. I hardly ever listen to serious books by serious authors who win serious.
I mean, what is a serious book? You just need to listen to things that you enjoy.
Book is probably even lower. The bar is even lower than it is. Every year I try whoever wins the Booker, I have a go, but I've never finished any of them. I'm just not very cultured. My son is now more cultured than I am, which is kind of depressing, really. I mean, it used to be like, oh, what do you want to go and see this movie? Yeah, we'll go and see the latest Marvel, the latest Pixar. And he was like, yay! And then we'd go have popcorn. And now it's me. And he goes, oh, I want to go and see, and he like lists off some dreadful art film. And I'm like, no, can't we go and see like a Marvel film? And he goes, oh, Dad, no, I want to see a Marvel film. And I go, I don't want to see something where nothing explodes.
Well, you just have to do, if you feel kind of less cultured than your son, you just have to whip out my books win awards, so I trump you. We have a lovely comment from Andy saying, my partner doesn't like sci-fi or fantasy at all, but I forced her to read the first chapter of the first book and she's now read them all, that's a huge compliment. That's lovely, Andy. We had somebody else, John, just saying, I think it was John saying, I'm sneaking off work for a few minutes just to be able to see this, which is lovely as well. Thank you, John, for joining us.
I met a lovely couple at the signing and they said, he didn't read any science fiction or she didn't read any crime. And mine was the only book they had in common.
Oh, wow.
Which I thought was lovely. It could have been the other way around. Sorry if I've got you the wrong way around.
No, that's lovely. We have another question from Alan saying, what happened to the proposed TV series? Do you have any updates on that?
The TV series. The TV series is like, if you ever worked in television, you'll know that the idea that any television series ever gets made is amazing to me because of the vast complexity involved in financing a TV series, especially something as expensive as Rivers of London. It's been in options since it came out, basically, but it's gone through several iterations, several companies. We got quite close with Peg and Frost, but then COVID came in and put the kibosh on that, as it did for other projects. And so it's under option. I call it Schrodinger. People who know me will know I always say this. I call it Schrodinger's TV series. At some point, we will open a box and there will either be a TV series in it or not, or an open cat. But I tell you, the point where you will know it's happening is when they cast Nightingale. Right?
Well, okay.
When they cast Nightingale, you'll know it's going to happen because Nightingale will probably be the best known actor out of the best known leading man style actor out of the series. Although, there's some good up and coming potential Peters as well, though. But I think Nightingale will be like, because a white mid 40s British actor who can do posh. That's quite a wide range of character actors. So British character actors. So if we have a character like that, once they name him and he's like definitely locked into contract, you'll know they're serious because he'll probably be the most expensive.
I see. Well, we have Jessica asking, could Kobna Holdbrook-Smith play Peter? Perhaps.
No,
so many people are saying how wonderful he is.
Holdbrook-Smith. I love Kobna Holdbrook-Smith, but he's not right for Peter. But I have actually invented a part for him for the TV series.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know whether you're keeping that kind of under wraps.
I'm keeping that under wraps. I don't think the production company know that I've invented a part.
They'll know at some point.
I can't tell you guys before I've told the production company. I think it's a fun thing. It's the sort of thing when you do a TV series, you have to start coming up with sort of ways of adaptation. Adaptation always involves adaptation, and I just realized that I needed a character to fulfill a plot function. And I thought, oh, that's great. That could be Kobna. Kobna can do that. And then he can just come in and out, get a bit of work every so often before running off to play some famous person or do another Marvel film or something or whatever it's doing this year.
Can't really time him down. Yeah, I appreciate that you can't tell us things that you haven't even told the producers yet. But I just wanted, for the record of everyone in the chat, I tried. I tried to get some more information out of him. We also, going back to what you were saying about a database, having to, you're saying, right, I probably should have created a database about 5 books ago. Samantha said, ask the fan groups, because someone probably already has a database, because people are very invested in the lore of these books.
Yeah, no. I've been known to look at the fan, but some of the stuff on the database won't have been in the books. There'll have been background material for the books.
I see.
That have informed the full, so I actually have to do it myself. Otherwise, I would totally leave it to somebody else to do.
Yeah.
I'm that lazy.
Well, I mean, you've got to focus on your art. Let somebody else do the admin if you can.
Go so as far as art.
We
Focus on
have.
comfort, definitely.
I mean, it's. I think a lot of people would call it art, or at least, yeah, people
Craft.
just
I call it a craft.
craft. Yes.
Like cheese.
Like Katie is asking, will we hear more from the American practitioners we met in False Value? And with a little a request to try and keep it vague and unspoilery, please.
I don't know. I don't actually plan my books that far ahead, so that will they get a name drop? Possibly. Will we ever actually meet them again? I don't know. My characters have a tendency to turn up at unexpected moments. For example, in the last book, I wasn't expecting Leslie to be in the last book at all, and then she suddenly turned up in the last book, and I was like, "All right, then." And then her part got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. I was like, "Look, if you just told me at the beginning you were going to be all the way through this book, I could have saved myself a lot of pain and suffering." So I have no idea. I mean, they're lovely characters. I love those characters. They're not in the Reynolds novella because of the sequencing, but yeah, it's a good excuse to go to New York, really, I think.
I mean, it's as good as any. I am aware that we are running out of time and we're going to have to wrap up in a minute. And before we go, I just want to say thank you to everyone who was bearing with me through my audio issues earlier. We have sorted those out. But I'm just looking for maybe one or two final questions before we wrap up. I have a fantastic one actually from Catherine, which could be great to finish on. Do you have an idea for the last book in the series, or could it go on potentially forever?
Well, God, that's a terrible question. You think it's not a good... I keep expecting it to wrap up, and it doesn't. But I never thought of it like a long series in the same way that, say, A Song of Ice and Fire or The Wheel. It's not a fantasy series in that sense, in that you have like a set number of books and a set amount of story. It's much more like a detective series whereby you have a detective and then you have a crime and then he solves the crime. And the next book, detective crime, and there's character development because people never stay static. But basically, you don't have like an arc. That's how I imagine it, like the 87th Precinct novels or Morse or Poirot or any of these characters. But at some point, I imagine he'll get just too promoted. I mean, once he's up to about detective chief inspector, he's gonna. I don't think it will. I think once he gets up into kind of administrative rank, because it's realistic, and so it wouldn't be realistic for him to be going around flinging fireballs. I think it would probably come to a graceful halt at that point. But I have no idea when that will happen. So. At least I made him young enough. I don't have to worry about him reaching retirement age, which is what happened to Rebus, which is always a mistake writers make, is they make their detectives middle-aged and then suddenly they're at retirement age and it's like, oh no, they've got to leave the force because they're too old, and then they have to come back in some kind of contrived way. And I think, I made him much younger than me. By the time Peter, it reaches retirement age, I will be dead. So that's not a problem.
I mean, that's a lot of perspective. That's one way to look at it. We have Samantha saying, never finish writing them, please. And I think a lot of people will probably echo that, but you have to kind of, you want to keep the plot plausible enough.
I always say that I will write them until one of three conditions turns up. One is they stop being interesting. Right? One is I can't think of anything interesting to happen. They become formulaic or something. I mean, many people will say, what more formulaic you mean? But the other one is that people stop buying them. I'm going to stop writing them if people stop buying them, obviously. I mean, mainly because the publisher will stop publishing them, so there won't be any point in me writing them. And I'll become one of those sad writers who looks back on their glory days long in the past. And the other one is if I can afford a yacht. A very, very big yacht. But then you see, apparently, if you have a yacht, that's like the cheapest aspect of owning a yacht is buying the yacht. They cost about, the rule of thumb is they cost about what they cost in the first place to run every year. So I'd probably have to keep writing them anyway, just to keep the yacht going. But I do like the idea of like sitting on front of my word processor and just picking up the phone saying, "Captain, I fancy going to south of France," and it's like the boat just
off we go. Yeah. Best keep writing then. That does sound like quite elaborate.
South.
Yeah. I do have a bonus question because a couple of people have asked. Are you likely to be at Jodie Well convention? I think it's the Jodie Taylor convention. People are wanting to know.
I don't know. I don't think so. I haven't been invited. So, you know, I love that people think I have any control over these things. People invite me to things and then I'm either bullied into going or I really want to go secretly and don't tell anyone. I don't think I'll be at the Jodie Taylor convention because no one's asked me so far. And usually you have to book me. I've got quite busy now. And also, I've got to write the bloody books. I can't keep going.
That's fair enough. Are you appearing at any other kind of conventions or events coming up?
Oh, God. I'm going to a convention in Wales, in Aberystwyth. I'm definitely doing a couple in the summer. I've got a book coming out, so they're going to send me trolling around the countryside. Going to various places. I've got to go back up to Aberdeen at least once because I'm still doing research there. I'm going to Germany. I'm maybe going to the German Discworld convention because I like the German Discworld convention. I've got now that there's a role-playing game, there's like all these gaming conventions that I have to turn up to. So, I mean, it's a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong. I don't say to myself, oh, no, not another convention. But, it does start filling up the calendar with an alarming speed. And, like, especially when you have a PA and they go, well, we've managed to squeeze, like, Wales in between Germany and Prague. And you're going, for God's sake, I'm going to get home, unpack, repack, go somewhere else, But and I'm a terrible traveler, so I always enjoy it when I get there, and I'm always like, oh god, I gotta go. Then I have a good time, and I go, oh, that was fun. And then I get home, and I don't. And once I'm back home, I don't want to move again.
Yeah,
I have pretty much the body at rest. You don't need an equation.
Well, I mean, it's hard because, as you know, I think a lot of the people in the chat will be really excited to hopefully be able to catch you at a few of those events. But I think we all wish you some rest when you're able to catch it as well.
We will, as soon as we have them firmed up, they will go on the website. So we want to announce them on the website. There's nothing on the website, it's because we haven't got definite dates, and we don't like to put things up until we're absolutely sure, so that people aren't disappointed. They think I'm going to do something and I'm not going to do it. Although it's still an odd thing for me to think that people are disappointed if I'm not there. It's like, apart from my family, obviously.
No, you've got lots of people that love to come out and see you. I mean, look at all the people that have come here today. And again, thank you to everyone who's turned up today. We've got lots of people kind of saying thank you. They've really enjoyed this session. Alison says they've been meaning to get rid of books as they have too many, but now planning to buy the hard copies of the Rivers of London series.
There's no such thing as too many books. There's only not enough bookshelf space.
I concur, and not and if you have audiobooks, shameless plug, yes, you can have infinite books, such as the 10,000 plus.
I find I now have everything 3 versions now. I have them. Yes. I have them as an electronic book. I have them as an audiobook, and I have them as a real book because I like to have all 3. It's terrible.
So, thank you so much. Yeah, I agree. It's you need different kinds of books for different moods and feelings.
On holiday, you don't want to take all the books with you.
I really respect our friends at Virtual Village Hall. Now that I've done my little plug, they've put the listing books data down there. So if anyone wants to have a look at our audiobook catalogue, we offer an audiobook lending service for anyone in the UK whose disability, illness, mental health condition, or learning difficulty make it more challenging to read or hold a book. So our details are below my face. So please do check us out. And also please do go to Ben's website for any further updates on books and kind of convention events and all kinds of Rivers of London goodies.
Oh, I have a Facebook page as well that you can also where we announce these things.
So I
very little else because I don't know how Facebook works, and so therefore it's very tentative.
I think I don't know whether we have the Facebook handle in the chat, but if not, if you search Ben Aaronovitch on Facebook,
yeah, you can't miss me. It's a really good name for that.
It is. We always know it's you. But yes, Ben, thank you so much. I'm gonna wrap things up, but I'd like to say thank you so much for your time. Of course. We're so glad that you were able to chat to us today because you clearly have a very busy schedule. So thank you so much. Everyone else is saying thank you as well.
Okay, thank
It's
you
been
very
wonderful
much,
to speak
and
to you.
it's been lovely to have me. I mean, you to have me. I don't know. It's virtual. It's
We've had a lovely time.
yeah, because you usually go, "Oh, it's lovely to be here," but I'm just at home, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you very much, Ben.
You're welcome.